Morning, gang. Dr. J with the great man, Jamie Hayes. Now, guys, with this corona thing, we're all cooped up inside. We've got to go shopping every now and then. And lots of you, when I spoke to you about how we say, I give you some extra stuff to do, not just going to bombard you with sales stuff. We've got to go a little bit more broad brush. I thought it would be who other than the person that you asked for was someone that understood nutrition. Well, I've known Jamie for over 30 years now, and he's always been a person that's wanted to know and always learning about nutrition. He's opened health clubs. He now has a nutrition-based business, which is a business specifically for weight control. And he also has online products and services, which helps people have a healthy, let's say, lifestyle, lose weight, get, let's say, better sleep, all the whole gambit. So I reached out, and Jamie very kindly said he'll spend some time with us on a Tuesday, giving you some, let's say, nutrition tips. So Jamie, welcome. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Hey, Steve, and it's lovely to speak to all your members, and hopefully I can impart just one or two ideas of value. And I want to say from the outset, I'm not a dietitian, I'm not a doctor. We actually retain a dietitian in our company, and so far we've helped well over 15,000 people lose over 150,000 kilos. So we've really developed some expertise and some strategies of things that work, you know. So hopefully we can share some ideas.
Well, you've certainly over the years actually been at the forefront of helping people, especially in that weight loss, and also not just about weight loss, it's about wellness as well. And it's a very click word now. And I was talking to you just the other day, and you were talking about the things that you're helping people with is to increase their immunity. And there's lots of things other than just weight loss and so forth. It's healthiness and making sure that we increase our immunity. And there's some things we eat and drink that do all sorts of things. So as I said to you just before we went live, I want sort of, as we progress, have a little bit of a theme of stuff. And I think what you're going to start off with today is going to be awesome.
And let's be topical like today. Today is Tuesday. What's it? Tuesday the 7th, isn't it? Yeah. And do you know that Boris Johnson has had a turn for the worse? Now, prior to getting coronavirus, he suffers metabolic disease. You can see it virtually in his waistline. His waistline is more than 50% of his height. It's likely that he has high insulin levels and insulin resistance, mainly from poor dietary choices. So it hasn't stopped him getting coronavirus. It's made it worse for him. And the people who have metabolic disease, be it diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, and these are all diet related, fare far worse if they get coronavirus. As a matter of fact, a lot of people who are metabolically healthy get it, and they virtually have something that's similar to a cold or a flu. Or sometimes they don't even know it. So the choices we make, particularly food choices, can make a significant difference, you know, to our vulnerability to the virus.
So I was actually hearing just the other day, Jamie, exactly what you just said. Look, with Boris, it actually was quite astute of you to see that. But they said that people that had, let's say, a obesity are going to be, and diabetes, and people that have a chronic type of component will have be more susceptible because their immune levels are lower. Definitely
lower immune levels. Now, Steve, I do want to share some tips with the team,
right.
And I wonder if they've got a pen and paper. I want to start with the big picture and then crunch down to the food, okay? So if they could simply write down FESSIC, F-E-S-S-I-C. G'day, Nigel, F-E-S-S-I-C. So, and here are some things you can do to manage your immune function. F stands for food, and we're going to come back to food. E stands for exercise, and we'll deal with that another time. S stands for sleep, getting quality sleep. At least that 7 or 8 hours sleep. The other S stands for sunshine, getting out there because that's good for your immune function. The I stands for isolation. Of course, wherever possible, we should be staying at home, staying off the street, and practicing social distance. And also, where possible, wear something across your face, like a mask or like that. And just overnight, the Canadian health authorities have said, we were wrong. People should be wearing something across their face, not to protect themselves, but to protect the community, other people around them. Because 100% of the people who came down with coronavirus, before they came down with the coronavirus, they were infective. They could infect others, and they were either pre-symptomatic or asymptomatic, which means they hadn't got the symptoms yet, or they never realized that they had the coronavirus, but they could infect others. So we need to remove the stigma of wearing a mask, because anybody who wears something across their face, it's not necessarily protecting them, it's protecting the community, people around them. So, and the statistics pretty clear that mask-wearing communities do better than non-mask-wearing communities. But, of course, surgical masks, we should keep those for the health workers. And the C is connect, which is connect with your community, connect with nature, connect with your family and friends, and reach out. So just making that call every day to somebody you haven't spoken to a while, it's good for you. It's good for your immunity. But anyway, today, let's focus on the food.
That's terrific. And could you just give the acronym again, just
yes,
one more time?
FESIC. F for food, E for exercise, S for sleep, S for sunshine, I for isolation, and C for connection.
All right, terrific. So, all right, well, now, there were some great tips there, guys. Make sure, as I said, Jamie says, write this down, whether you're seeing this on replay or live. Better live, because you can ask some questions when we're live. So we'll open it out to questions when Jamie's wrapped up. But now we're going to talk about some food. So over to the maestro.
And look, thanks, Steve. The trick is to be on an anti-inflammatory diet that stabilizes your blood sugar. So you don't want to be triggering blood sugar spikes. And we've seen the supermarkets sell out not of the fresh food so much, but of the processed foods. So the trick to eating a healthy anti-inflammatory diet when it comes to reading food labels is stop eating foods that have a label. These are processed foods. So if you think, what would my great-grandmother have eaten for breakfast? That's if she had breakfast or lunch or dinner, and it would be meat and veg. It would be fish or meat and veg. So if you firstly prioritize protein, because, Steve, you will keep on being hungry until your protein needs are met. So if in every meal, and if you have a snack, but if you make sure you get some quality protein, then that will help in satisfying your appetite. And you'll naturally eat less. So one of the weight loss tips to bring, not only to bring down our weight, but to managing weight, is to prioritize protein every meal. I'm not saying having a high protein meal or anything like that, but just make sure you got quality bioavailable protein in every meal, which is typically a steak or fish or eggs or something like that, that's going to give you adequate protein. Because if you have a low protein meal or diet, you'll eat more to satisfy your protein needs, and you'll simply overeat. So one of the secrets we've learned in weight management is to prioritize protein so that people naturally eat less, and it helps them lose weight, as long as they don't add the processed carbohydrates. So the next secret that we've learned is, and Steve, could you hold up your hand so that like that? Actually, turn it around so we can, fine. So thank you. Let's compare the skin on Steve's hand with the skin on my hand. If we both went to Bondi Beach, which we're not allowed to right now, and lay in the sun in the middle of summer, looking at Steve's skin and my blotchy skin, if we asked the question, could one of us tolerate a few more minutes of sun before getting sunburnt, I think Steve, who has slightly more olive skin, would probably win that. So Thanks, Steve. So just as Steve and I vary in our sun tolerance, every human being also varies in their carbohydrate tolerance, above which they have difficulty accessing their own stored fat for fuel. So if you're carrying a little bit of extra weight, particularly extra weight around your waistline, how come you don't, which is stored energy, you might ask yourself the question, do I ever get tired or hungry or cravings? So how could I possibly get tired, hungry or cravings if I've got all that stored energy? Because 10 kilos of excess weight is around 77,000 calories of energy, enough for Steve to walk from Sydney to Melbourne and back without eating. And the fact is that if we're exceeding our carbohydrate tolerance, what's happened is our body is swimming in high insulin levels. Insulin is the fat storage hormone. And so whilst we're in high insulin levels stimulated by too much carbohydrate from any source, healthy or not, then your body has difficulty accessing fat from your fat cells. And we become metabolically unhealthy like Boris Johnson. So he was metabolically unhealthy and he was more predisposed to faring worse from coronavirus. Eventually, we may all get the virus. It'll pass through our systems. But the people who fare worse are those people who have undiagnosed metabolic problems, which is either high blood sugar or, and many people have said, oh, my doctor sent me for a blood sugar test, it's fine. But your blood sugar is controlled by insulin. And if you've got high insulin, particularly over the years, year to year, decade to decade, this becomes very inflammatory. So having a high carb, sort of low fat diet can end up being quite inflammatory for many people. And a sign that that's happening is we're putting on weight around the waistline. Now, there's two types of weight around the waistline. There's the stuff that jiggles up and down. That's just directly under your skin. But the weight inside, around your organs in the middle, the visceral fat, that is highly inflammatory. And what we find is when we reduce somebody's carbohydrate intake from all sources, so that they're having loads of green leafy vegetables, all that sort of stuff, and they're prioritizing protein, their waistline starts going down. And a very nice side effect of that is that their blood pressure comes down if they have high blood pressure. Another nice side effect is that their triglycerides come down. Another nice side effect is their HDL, or good carbohydrate, comes up. And their waistline comes down. And waistline is associated with high inflammation and poorer immune function. So we really want to get it down. So here's another secret, is to pre-plan your meals. Don't leave it to chance. Because if you pre-plan what you're going to eat for breakfast, lunch, dinner, or snacks if you have snacks, then you can pre-plan your shopping so you're always surrounded by the foods that are going to support your plan. And ideally, you're buying sort of fresh foods most days, or you put it in the freezer. You can freeze meats and things like that. So, and you're cooking. And here's another food tip. If you want to bring down inflation and boost your immune function, try to eat every meal with a knife and fork. So when you think of the meals we eat with a knife and fork, and here we go. I've actually got a knife here. If you think of meals we eat with a knife and fork, typically it's meat and some vegetables, isn't it? But foods that we eat with our hands, think of a roll, a sandwich, pizza, chips, or even fruit, by the way. They are all higher in carbohydrate because the carbohydrate is enveloping what's in the sandwich, isn't it? The two pieces of bread and things like that. But if you're eating a meal with a knife and fork, which is meat and some greens and things like that, it tends to be lower in carbohydrate, and you tend to eat slower too, which is a healthy way to go.
So we're actually saying here, but that's quite interesting. The things that we eat with a knife and fork, you can't put between some carbohydrate, whether it's pizza or whether it's a piece of bread. So you say, well, if I can eat this with my hands, it might help with the inflammatory process. So if I could eat it
That's,
with my knife and fork, or if it's just leafy greens and some veggies,
that's right.
that would be an easy way to judge. So having those leafy greens and proteins ideally should be with a knife and fork. Like you just leave out the bread.
Sure. So, Steve, I'm going to ask you a food-related hypothetical question. But before I ask that question, do you have a niece or a nephew that you care about?
Absolutely, yeah.
And who is the youngest one? What's their name?
His name is Josh.
Josh. Okay, fine. Now let me ask you another question. Have you ever seen the Tom Hanks movie Castaway?
Yes, I have. Yes.
Okay, fine. Now, he was cast away on a desert island. And before he was cast away, he was pretty sick and he had extra weight, actually. Actually, it's a strange irony that Tom Hanks has just had coronavirus, isn't it? But anyway, we'll leave that for a bit later. And Tom Hanks has diabetes, so he's more vulnerable. So that's interesting. But if you were cast away on that desert island, not by yourself like Tom Hanks, but with Josh, your nephew, who you care about. And there was absolutely nothing to eat that you might have normally been eating for the last 24 hours or 7 days. But there was plenty of fish in the sea, and you found a net and figured out how to catch the fish. And you figured out how to rub sticks together and build a fire and cook the fish. And there were coconut trees, and you figured out how to shake the coconut down, and you found I think he found like an ice skate thing to break open the coconut, eat the coconut meat and milk. And because it was a sandy desert island, there were lots of green leafy vegetables that grew above the ground, but no starchy vegetables that grew in the ground, in the sand. They couldn't grow there. But plenty of those. And there were birds flying around that lay eggs. So there were eggs as well. And now and then you caught a bird, like a chicken or something like that. And there was plenty of running water. Now, the question is, would you and Josh live or die?
Oh, we live very healthily, mind you.
Well, there you go. Isn't that interesting? So, but none of the foods that you might have eaten in the last 24, 48 hours, no tea, no coffee, no bread, no pizza, no pasta, no rice. So I did say there was some fruit, but only seasonal fruit, only sort of lemons, limes, and berries. And they weren't very sweet because our grandmothers, they knew the seasons for apples, oranges, peaches, and pears. But now we're told to have 2 serves a day every day of 365 days a year. That's a nonsense. My Aunt Mickey from Tamworth used to say, eat local produce in season. So only when, and they knew the seasons. So, and so if you want to manage your immune function, simply eat as though you were on that desert island. And of course, all those foods, none of them had.
That's brilliant. So,
and none of those foods had food labels, did they?
if you've actually so if you're actually round and leafy and so forth, they're probably better than getting things from inside the ground, which are more starch orientated. So it's like potatoes and sweet potatoes. What about things like carrots and so forth? Because they're in the ground, but I suppose it's a little different.
That's right. Well, look, and I'm not saying don't have any starchy vegetables, but particularly the processed starchy foods, the grains, the cereals, the breads, all that sort of stuff. Limit those, particularly if you're carrying extra weight. Particularly if you're carrying extra weight around the midsection, because it's unlikely that your doctor has diagnosed whether you have hyperinsulinemia, which is high insulin levels, or has diagnosed whether you have insulin resistance, which is a result of having high insulin levels for a long period of time as a result of your body's response to your dietary choices. And so if you're carrying extra weight around the midsection, it's a telltale sign that you may have high insulin levels or high levels of or you may have insulin resistance, which makes you more vulnerable should you pick up any bug, particularly right now if you pick up the coronavirus bug. So, but the good news is there is something you can do in your own self-defense is to normalize your blood sugar, normalize your insulin level, and the only way you can do that is with better dietary choices. Now, I will also say that give credit to exercise, particularly resistance exercise and interval training exercise. Those two, both resistance exercise and interval training, can be helpful in dealing with insulin resistance. So they are effective. Also, sleep is helpful. Sunshine helps adjust our circadian rhythm so we get better quality of sleep. And the trick with sleep is whatever time you wake up, make sure you're in bed at least 8 hours before. So you give your body the opportunity to have that 8 hours sleep. And of course, we should be isolating as much as humanly possible. Just one more reminder. Just one more reminder, Steve. We wear the mask not for ourselves, but to protect others and the community.
All right. So if someone wanted to adjust the inflammation or to maybe reduce the, let's say, the insulin levels, the simple way of doing it is to making sure that we focus on having vegetables, everything that's pretty much, that doesn't have a label. Yep. So it's anything with a label, so toss it out. And and by the way, it's usually a bit cheaper. And then you can actually take away the sandwiches and so forth, which are
don't do that. Don't do that.
Need the sandwich.
Yeah.
Have some protein, whether it's
not some protein. I'd prioritize protein. Prioritize protein.
Now, when people are vegetarians and so forth, what sort of proteins would they use? What would
sure. Look, there's there's lots of different types of vegetarianism. Some people still have fish, some people still have eggs, some people still have dairy. Then you've got the vegans that have none of those. And it becomes more difficult because they've got to eat more food and more calories in order to meet their body's protein needs. Because your body isn't ideological about various dietary regimes. It just wants to meet its protein needs. And so it will get you to continue eating and you can definitely meet your protein needs with vegetable sources, with a mix of legumes and grains and things like that, and tofu and soy and things like that. So it just takes a little bit more work and effort and study too.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the other thing it was saying...
I shouldn't be touching my face. See, I just did that. We shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah, you're isolating, mate. You're good.
Yeah, and I am washing my hands.
Okay. Now, the other thing was use your knife and fork.
Yep.
So interestingly enough, usually we don't use knife and fork. We use our hands to eat the bun or whatever the case may be. So that would help as well.
Yeah.
Understanding that if we have prioritize your protein, if you eat enough protein, that will stop the hunger. And that will allow you to then have a better lifestyle. So now, and also you're saying that if we reduce the amount of carbohydrates that we're having,
particularly the processed carbohydrates, and for some people who really are struggling to lose weight, they've got to reduce choose very low carbohydrate fruits like lemons, limes, and berries. Only in small quantities.
So when you say berries, would they be blackberries?
Yeah, blackberries, strawberries, blueberries, things like that. They're typically, low in sugar delivery.
Because so is it true, Jamie, that if someone wanted to lose weight, or as you said, sitting on the desert island, we'd have the fish and the leafy things and all that sort of stuff. Is it true that the first 5 to 10 kilos really comes off in the kitchen?
Well, I phrase it slightly differently. Weight loss is much easier to do in the kitchen than the gym.
Okay, so if someone actually is doing exercise and enjoys exercise, the combination of these two things would make a big difference. So while we're isolating at home, have a little bit of an exercise regime to keep the circulation going. And if we start to get a little bit, let's say, smarter when we go shopping, no labels, some leafy vegetables, some proteins and so forth, and then concentrate on saying, how is my, let's say, weight around my tummy and start measuring and keeping an eye on that, they're probably going to be a lot more healthier after this little bit of time. And secondly, it will reduce our probability of getting sick because our immunity will go up. Did I summarize that right?
Absolutely. But definitely, I don't want to underrate exercise. I think just like brushing our teeth or flossing our teeth, actually dentists get asked the question, which teeth should I floss? And the answer is only the ones you want to keep. and it's the same when it comes to exercise. Which muscles should I work? Work out only the ones that I want to keep nice and strong. And so I think everybody should develop a daily exercise ritual. I do 3 to 5 exercises every morning in my life, and it's just my ritual. So I definitely want to re-emphasize that it's absolutely crucial for your health. But what I've found is when people, that a lot of people believe that exercise leads to weight loss, but the science doesn't support that. But the reverse is true. If somebody eats better, which is what they do in the kitchen, and lose weight, that leads them to be more predisposed to exercise. They're more able to be physically active, to walk up and down the stairs without knee pain and things like that. So by being clever in the kitchen, by thinking, would this be what my great-grandmother recognizes as food, and eating off a plate with a knife and fork, and eating slower is even better, then you're more likely to lose weight, particularly weight around the midsection. Blood pressure comes down, joint pain comes down, insulin comes down, blood sugars come down. So your predisposition for insulin resistance, inflammation comes down, immunity goes up, and your defenses improve. So everything improves.
Well, what a great summary of that, Jamie. I can't wait for all of our little installments of our half-hour chit-chat with the guru. That was just brilliant. Guys, I hope you wrote lots of stuff down. And we've got Nigel's on here. You've got an opportunity, if it's it could be Melody or Nigel. If you want, I'll unmute you. If you want to ask a question, I'll ask away. Because if you've got a question or two for Jamie, while you've got him here, we've got a few more moments. Why don't you ask him?
Oh, I'm unmuted. Have you got me?
No, you're on, mate.
G'day, Nigel.
How are you, Jamie?
Any big questions?
Mate, one question we'd probably like to know is how would you get started? Like we have, our trainer, suggests completely opposite to you, which is really hard to sort of work out. So she says we should be having carbs in the morning and in the lunch and at lunchtime, and then none at dinner. But Melody would like to lose some weight, and so would I, but we're not. So it's fair to say that maybe the damage was already done, if you know what I mean.
Oh no! Firstly, the damage is not done. So at any age, regardless of your shape, you can improve. The trainer is right in regards to her body. I'm not an expert in your body, and I'll put it to you that neither is your trainer and neither is you. What we've found is the only expert when it comes to your body is your body and your body's response to food. And so if we have one ideology, and I haven't told you don't eat carbs this meal or that meal, is that one diet does not suit everybody. And so I suggest that you try to discover what is your body's individual carbohydrate tolerance, because your trainer may be able to tolerate 300 grams of carbohydrate per day. She might be a supreme athlete, and good on her. But your body might only be able to tolerate 50 grams of carbohydrate. I don't know. The only way that you'll find out is by asking your body the question. And the way to ask your body the question is by dramatically reducing the carbohydrate content of your meal choices. I'm not saying reducing the nutrient content, just the carbohydrate content, because you could discuss this with your trainer. Say, trainer, do we have is there something called essential amino acids, which is proteins? And she'll say yes. Is there something called essential fatty acids, which is omega-3, omega-6s? She'll say yes. But if you ask her, is there something called essential carbohydrates? She'll hesitate because the answer is no. There is no term called essential carbohydrates. And so carbohydrates are a source of energy, but so is fat, and so is body fat. So what we want you to do is to access energy from your body fat. And it's difficult to do that if you're exceeding your body's individual carbohydrate tolerance from any foods, healthy or not, processed or not. So what we've suggested by choosing proteins and plenty of green leafy vegetables and low sugar fruits is something that is high in nutrient density, but low in carbohydrate density. So we're meeting all the nutrient needs of your body. And so I'd just encourage you to biohack or self-experiment to say, if I reduce my carbohydrate intake, how do I feel? How's my energy level?
How long would it take, Jamie?
Yeah, sure.
A good feeling.
I think really within a week, most people start feeling different. One thing I'd advise you, this is a little practitioner's tip. When you go for completely no processed food, prioritizing protein, having plenty of green leafy vegetables, your sodium intake will go down dramatically. And so you may run into what's called some electrolyte imbalance adjustment issues. And so I would encourage you to just sprinkle a little bit of salt on your meals to maintain electrolyte balance. And that way, whilst your body's adjusting, you'll feel well. And don't be surprised if bloating goes down, head fog goes away, joint pain feels better. And within a week, you say, gee, I'm feeling significantly better. And initially, if you do start losing weight, it'll probably be water weight as your kidneys sort of dump excess water. But then you'll find, weight loss is becoming much easier for me. And this is good news for your trainer. I'm more inclined to exercising with my trainer. I've got more energy. So I'm on her side.
Jamie, would you have to drop alcohol? Would you have to drop milk as well in order to get the full result? I mean, look, this is a big thing for us. I mean, we're in isolation. At the moment, alcohol seems to be the one thing to get you through the day. I know you probably don't agree with that, but I know Steve doesn't either, but sometimes...
Well, I don't know about getting through the day. I don't know if I'd start drinking alcohol at breakfast.
You know what I'm saying?
And look,
you have to eradicate everything.
Yeah, sure. Now, let me answer the question. There's no doubt, unfortunately, that alcohol depresses immune function and makes sleep worse. But I think for most people who do drink alcohol, a glass of wine or two at night with a meal is probably pretty innocuous and is not going to do them any harm.
Okay.
But I will say this, that a lot of people, particularly around 5 or 6 o'clock throughout the day, if they don't have stable blood sugar, they tend to self-medicate at the end of the day by a beer or a glass of wine and things like that, because they've got low blood sugar. So instead of having blood sugars up and down like this, we really want to have even blood sugar throughout the day. If you're eating the way I suggested, prioritizing protein, and topping up with loads of green leafy vegetables and things like that, you'll have more stable blood sugar, and you can choose to have a glass of wine or a beer or whatever like that, but you're not doing it because of low blood sugar. And the question on milk, definitely, milk is a source of protein, and if you can tolerate milk, a little bit of milk's fine. I'm one of those people that can't tolerate milk, so I don't have milk or cream or whatever like that. My wife, Ellen, does like to have a white coffee, and she has a long black with cream because cream has virtually no lactose. For those people who are lactose intolerant, it sits easier on their stomach than a latte or something like that. And also those people who want to keep down their carbohydrate load, lactose is the sugar in milk. So a great low carb coffee is a long black with cream.
Okay, that's awesome. So if we went that way and reduced to 1 or 2 drinks at night and then actually took on board no carbs, we'd get a good result within a week.
I didn't say no carbs. I just said get rid of the processed carbs. Of course, there is some carbohydrate in all those veggies I mentioned and the low sugar fruits.
What you mean is anything with bread and rice and all that sort of stuff in the
That's
past.
right. Yeah, sure. I mean, we haven't owned a toaster for 10 years.
Yeah. So it's just a choice, really, and we can see if it works for us.
Yeah. So let's say you invited Ellen and myself to your place on Sunday for lunch, and we had a barbecue, and you cooked them lovely steak or fish and fantastic salads.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody assumes that's normal. Maybe you might have a glass of wine with that as well. Everybody assumes that's normal, but you didn't give us pasta, you didn't give us bread, you didn't make us a pizza or something, or there was no rice, but we had a steak and salad. That's what I'm suggesting.
Yep. No, we can do that. That's not a steak and salad. But I mean, the thing is finding out what your body, like you're saying, finding out what your body's actually designed to do. We're all so different. One thing Absolutely. Is we know where we're at right now and we haven't achieved anything. So it's got to be worth trying something different.
Yeah. And so keep a record of what you're eating, pre-plan your meals, surround yourself with, what I'm suggesting is fresh foods, isn't it? And then monitor your body's response. So the two ways, apart from how you feel, keep a measure of your weight and your waistline. They're the most critical measures, weight and waistline.
Jamie, one of the things has helped a lot is a lot of people think they don't eat carbohydrate and they don't think they drink too much and they don't think, well, I only have two, or I only have 1 or 2 pieces of bread. But when they actually write it down, it's now 5 glasses of wine, and then it's been three sandwiches, which is 6 slices of bread. And all of a sudden they go, my goodness, I had no idea I was eating all that carb like bread, or and I didn't have 1 glass of wine. I actually had 4.
That's right.
When they write it down, it's just like, oh my God. And that's no wonder, because they're getting the excess. Do you find that? Because I know that with with all of your clubs and also with your programs, you get people to write things down.
Oh, well, yeah. And, there's 2 ways of writing things down, reactively and proactively. Reactive is you just write the thing, whatever you put in your mouth down. But we prefer the proactive way, which is you pre-plan your meals. So you pre-plan your shopping, and you follow what we call the 1 plate rule. So you prepare your meal, put it on the plate and bring it to the table and enjoy it and enjoy the company. So rather than putting it, the family start putting everything on the plate and we just keep on going until it's all gone, that's not a good way to do it. So you really just want to pre-plan your meals, pre-plan your shopping, and follow the 1 plate rule. And when it comes to wine, of course, let's say you're in a restaurant, and if you just, and you order some wine and you order it by the glass, I want you to assume that you say to the waiter, when I finish that glass, I want you to leave my empty glass there. I might choose to have another glass, bring me another glass. And don't keep on topping up my glass. Every time, if I choose to have some more wine, I want to have another glass. And you might end up with 4 glasses, empty glass in front of you. And that'll be a way for you to self-monitor. But if you've just got a glass there and you just keep on topping it up, there's no way of self-monitoring. So even if you're at home saying, okay, you can have a second glass, but I'm going to get another glass. And so Nigel's got 3 glasses in front of him. And have you ever measured what a 1 serve, like 100 ml is in a glass? I mean, it's not a lot. I could go and get one of those big fancy glasses and you'll say, Jamie, you're pretty stingy, but that is a serve of wine, 100 ml. So you want to measure it out. And also, Nigel, here's a tip for you. Of course, drink water for thirst, grog for flavour. Never drink grog for thirst.
Thanks, Jamie.
It's absolutely my pleasure. Nigel, I hope we'll be seeing less of you.
All right, my goodness. Great questions, Nigel. Thanks, mate. That's awesome. Jamie, that was just gold. We'll pop it into the SAC group for the replayers and so forth, and I'll have a look at it. I'm sure we'll have a bucket of people actually listening. But thank you so much for your time, mate. I know how busy you are with everything going on. So outstanding. I love writing all that stuff down. It's just brilliant.
Sorry, Steve, can I just share one takeaway? And this is a politically incorrect takeaway for anybody in sales. That we've all heard the saying, you can't judge a book by its cover. But when it comes to the employment market, when it comes to sales and marketing, unfortunately, the world does judge us by our physical appearance and our energy levels and things like that. And in the world, particularly unfortunately with females, what's the word? It discriminates against females carrying extra weight, and it is unfair, but it is reality. It is completely unfair, and we've found many people, when they get control of their weight, they get more employment opportunities, more promotional opportunities. They seem to have more energy, even make more sales. Don't ask me why. So this is unfair, but we're moving into a new world, where we're competing against lots of others in lots of different ways and optimizing our health. And a nice side effect is optimizing our physical appearance can make a huge difference to your income and the sales you make.
That's a great segue into what we do. So, Jamie, again, thanks a lot. Nigel, thanks for joining us, and look forward to the next installment next week. So,
thanks, Steve, and all the best to your members.
Thank you very much. Hey, gang, how good was that? Hope you wrote that stuff down. The great questions from Nigel. When you come on next week, we'll hope we'll get a ton more people on, and you can ask your questions. And the great man, Jamie, who, he's got a wealth of knowledge. Good grief. All those tidbits. I thought I was pretty good with my food, but I'm certainly going to get rid of my milk in my coffee, just whack a bit of cream. All right, gang, thanks for joining us. I'm Dr. J. We'll see you in the SAC on Wednesday for business tips, eh? Bye for now.